Hello and welcome to Snide's Return, a tabletop roleplay podcast. My guest today knows that the School of Hard Knocks is located in Faerun, Galarian, Duskfall, or wherever we choose to adventure, but also at our homes, schools and education centres here too. Inspiring young, formative minds through to the tearaway dreams of teens, my guest provides guidance, leadership, advice and direction. I'm glad to say they've agreed to join me today as we welcome game designer, content creator, blogger, and supporter of Our Futures, TTRPG hero Steph, aka TTRPGkids. Steph, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me on here.
It's absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Steph, before we get sort of into some of the things I've alluded to there in the introduction, how did you yourself get into tabletop role-playing games, please?
My first experience was several years ago. I got invited to participate in like a little mini campaign, kind of one-shot sort of situation with my husband and some of his friends from work. And I absolutely loved it. But it was like just one session and it ended. And, life as an adult, stuff kind of like happens and whatnot. I didn't get back into it again until it was at least a couple years later, and it was after I had my kid. My brother had gotten me hooked on Critical Role,
Nice.
and
Nice.
it's like a gateway for a lot of people into TTRPGs. Um,
Yep.
yep, and we were all kind of like, well, we really want to play, but we don't know anybody who's a DM. And I'm like, well, I'll just do it. I ended up making this massive homebrew world. I loved it. The first campaign ended a little abruptly. But then after that, picked it up again, started another campaign, started doing play testing. It just kind of like snowballed into like this massive interest in tabletop RPGs. And I've been loving it.
No, that's amazing, and long may it continue. But rewinding a little, so you played in a one shot, and there was a gap, and life took its course for a period of time, and then just you dove into this homebrew world, which is intimidating for a lot of people. But you went there. So, would you mind describing a little bit about your homebrew world, if you remember some of the details about it?
Yeah.
Because each one is very special to the individual. So, I'd love to hear more about yours.
Yeah, there was these magic items that each of the characters was trying to get. They were each kind of like a chosen one, and the item would level up with them and everything. One of my favorite cities there had like a time distortion going on, where there's like these portals opening up between different realms. So there's different bits and pieces of technology coming through. So there's this mix of medieval stuff, like kind of Western style gear. There's TVs all kind of mixed in with it, and like some futuristic tech kind of coming in. It was this giant mishmash, and the players were trying to piece together what was going on. It was this big puzzle. They had to infiltrate this lab and all kinds of stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds it. It sounds it. And so, having homebrewed that and carried on with the play testing, when did your focus? When did you go from Steph to become TTRPGkids and the sort of the rest of the journey that we will talk about in a moment? When did that transition sort of take place?
So during lockdown, my job situation, so I was a crash test engineer and I was analyzing crash tests from home. And the schedule was not working out super well. My husband and I are both engineers. We had a then 2-year-old who decided he wasn't going to nap anymore at home as well. And something kind of needed to give. So I ended up quitting my job and kind of doing the whole stay-at-home parent gig. And it was kind of, I started playing like storytelling games with him and dove into a bunch of research with that, trying to figure out, different ways to do it, different ways to introduce stories and things like that. And the information was kind of scattered all over the place. Lots of people had advice. Lots of people were confused about what advice to take or having trouble finding advice. There wasn't like a central repository for everything to go. And it was kind of like idle engineering brain. I started collecting all the information and turning it into this big research project. And I'm like, I need a place to put this all. So TTRPGkids kind of happened as a result of that. It's my way of sharing everything that I'm learning, and it creates kind of a really cool research project for me to do with my kid. And that's about how it came about.
So you mentioned there the website. So if we were to go to the website, and I get some links off you very shortly, but if we were to go to the website, what can we find that'll really help us uh,
Mhm.
either run or develop games that are either specifically child focused or just with a way to sort of help steer a narrative in that sort of age group?
Yeah. I have games lists that have different game recommendations that's sorted by target age. So I know
Mm,
it varies per kid, but it's kind of, is this appropriate for really little kids like ages 3 to 5, or is it more for like 8 to 10 kind of ranges? Um, I do reviews of games. So there's a lot of reviews on there where it's games that I've played with my kid, and it goes over what I thought about it. Some of the more recent ones, I've started to be able to, get his words for what he thought about it in there, um, what the game was like, types of mechanics, and things like that. And then I also have tips and tricks, which are things that I learned from playing with my kid that made it a little bit easier. So, ways to tweak mechanics, different things you can bring in, like trackers, flashcards for different things,
mm,
um, alternatives to using dice that, sometimes it helps depending on the system, or if you got really little kids, you don't want having dice. I
mm,
do interviews with individuals in the community. There's, wide range from creators to uh, there's some kid friendly podcasts that
mm,
we've got on there. We talk to parents who have run tabletop RPGs with different age ranges of kids. There's a couple of organizations that I brought on there, just different perspectives, and kind of highlighting all of the awesome creators and content makers that are out there that focus on tabletop RPGs for kids. Um, oh gosh, I feel like I keep adding more and more to it. I've got featured projects where it's recent Kickstarters,
mm,
so you can figure out or you can find out who's got Kickstarter projects that are coming up that have to do with kids tabletop games,
mm.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, it is a vault, a well, a, as you say, a repository, a research and resource center. It's a fantastic website that I'm glad you keep adding things to it because it just enables us to sort of learn and use more in our games, which is fantastic. Um, so you mentioned there some of the games you've reviewed and things like that. What are some of the standout games at time of recording? Obviously, as time moves on, new games will pop up or things will fall away and things like that. But what are some of the standout games that you've enjoyed running or have found fun to have reviewed?
Yeah. Some of my favorites are there's Color My Quest is a really good one. Inspirials
Hmm.
is another one that we really had a lot of fun with. Bard RPG, Starsworn, all those have been like really good ones. The Family Fantasy RPG series. They're all ones that really clicked with my kid, were really versatile. I was able to be involved with all parts of the story as well. A lot of them
Hmm.
incorporated other elements like coloring and stuff like that. So it was good ways to keep him occupied and very engaged with the material.
Yeah. Color My Quest by Dice Up Games
Yes. Yeah.
is fantastic. Inspirized by Hatchling,
Yep.
and the Bard RPG is by Scriv.
Scriv. Yep.
Scriv the Bard. And the last one I'll do some more research on.
Yeah.
But as you say, they've got the colouring for Colour My Quest, the sign language used
Hmm.
in Spirals is brilliant. We managed to play a game with Rich, the creator.
Hmm.
So much fun. So I definitely think that's a fantastic recommend. As I say, I'll have to check out the others myself, or just use your website as a resource,
Yeah.
as it's there for. Speaking of resources, where can we go to find you and all of these wonderful resources, please?
The main point of kind of contact is going to be the TTRPG Kids website. So if you just Google TTRPG Kids, all one word, it ends with an S. There's no Z or anything like that. Just TTRPG Kids, it'll come up. The website is ttrpgkids.com. And then if you look up TTRPG Kids on, there's Twitter, Instagram. I've got a Facebook group, Discord group. I have a subreddit. There's a Kofi. Any of those places, if you search it, you'll end up finding me.
Well, you mentioned Kofi there as a way to support you, but you also have the itch.io page as well.
Yep, and
So,
itch. Yeah.
so what is it we can find on Itch that you have out for us to have a look through and purchase potentially?
Yeah. So on Itch, there's a whole bunch of games for pre-K kids. It's all part of the Story Guider curriculum. So it follows a pre-K social emotional curriculum that I was making for a teacher friend. And I think it was 40 games in there, or like
There's a lot.
40
There's a
adventures
lot.
that all
Yeah.
cover different things. There's like one of them goes over deep breathing exercises. One is about empathy with animals. Another one is about identifying emotions and things like that, but it's done in
Mm.
a fun way. There's superheroes and astronauts and all kinds of stuff in there. I also have a whole bunch of all ages games. Baker's Charge is one of my most popular ones. Um, and it's basically like Great British Baking Show, but the TTRPG. There's Energy Odes. There's a whole bunch of different ones. I've got probably like 50 games on there. Most recently, I've been putting out ones for Glyphy, which is a system that I made where instead of rolling dice, you have paper tokens that you put in a cup. And so you can kind of like build up your probability by adding tokens in or coloring them in to power them up.
Mm.
And then you draw out like two and try and get a match. So you want to like tweak your
Okay.
probability with different ones that you put in there so you can kind of match different ones up. Putting out adventures for that. And right now I have business card quest jam going on. So it's a game jam that's to help boost the TTRPG community. And it's a business card repository on Itch. So that way, everyone who's working on these awesome projects can have a digital business card, even if you can't make it to a convention. There's a
Mm.
place where your info's out there. And then on the back, you put a little map piece on it. So then they all fit together and make this giant map for the community.
That's
So
amazing.
lots of stuff going on. I have
That's
too many
amazing.
projects.
I, I mean, you're managing to achieve it. Also, maybe you got just the right amount. You never know. Maybe there's another one just creeping at the back. And you mentioned Glyphy. So, what's the current adventure for that? Because I think it's Glyphy Scouts is the sort of
Yes.
the game itself. So, what do you have to do to become a Glyphy Scout? And what's the current adventure? Where do our scouts go?
So Glyphy Scouts is it starts out with you have been inducted into the Glyphy Scouts and you have the sash of blank patches. And when you get thrown through a magic portal from somebody summoning you to help them out, you end up in that land and your patches will start to fill in over time that grant you magical powers. So your patches
Mm.
are the glyphs that go in the cup. And then if you're reading the intro, it goes, wait, what portal? And then it just goes, ah! And there's a picture of a portal that you're getting thrown into. So right now, the first one that was released was around Halloween, and it was a Halloween adventure. So it's called Skelly in the Land of Tricks and Treats.
Nice.
Um, and the next one is going to be it's called STEM Station, STEM. Um, and it is a space station that's built into a rotating asteroid. And so the entire inside of the asteroid is hollowed out, and you're going through chasing down STEM bots that are like trying to rebuild parts of the station. They're trying to help, but not doing a very good job at it. And there's a displaced astronaut that you're going to try and help out and going
Mm.
to call home so that the way they can get back and stuff like that. So
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds
yeah.
like a lot of fun. Uh, with respect to fun, you have created these games. The story guider. You mentioned you were sort of created that for someone else, another TTRPG person. But the story guider has, I won't say it's taken on a life of its own, but it has so much content. So what was what was like with the origin, and how have you felt that it has developed as a product and a process since its first inception?
Mm-hmm. So when I first started out with it, my kid was 2.5. And so I wanted something that was very accessible to him. He wasn't super great with mechanics and was a little bit confused about, having a book that we were changing the words to and he's like, well, you read it. Why are you asking me what's happening next?
Mm,
So it was that first step into practicing role playing games and getting used to changing things in the story, making decisions that are going to have um, consequences, like consequences that are appropriate for like a 2 to 3 year old,
mm,
But what you do in the story is going to change things later, and if you play it again, you get different results from
mm,
making different choices. So there's no dice rolls. It's kind of like you have story chunks, and then you get to a part where there's like 2 or 3 choices, or maybe a discussion part where you're talking about what does this character feel. Let's pretend to be this character. Let's practice those kind of elements, so that way it's a
mm,
really smooth introduction into tabletop RPGs, while also still being like this really fun activity that has a lot of freedom um, to make changes and choices throughout it without being like too hectic.
yeah,
So it started out with just some stories about a little dragon, and it ended up growing into, there's a trilogy about the dragon, and then holiday specials about them, and then there's, a trilogy about an astronaut. There's a
mm,
trilogy about a superhero. There's one about Betty the Yeti, which is a shy Yeti who is having a hard time making friends. So it's going through kind of like all those social elements. And it ended up just kind of growing from different ideas my kid and I had about characters, different interests that he had. So I was kind of playing into that and incorporating
mm,
that into the stories. And it ended up kind of circling back into, started with a dragon, ended with a section about a wizard. And there's this huge variety in between of different types of stories, different topics covered. It did end up kind of taking on a bit of a life of its own and ended up becoming this huge project. But I think it was
mm.
a good one and it really helped my kid out. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned there a good project and helping your kid out. For you personally, and this doesn't have to be a game you run for your kid, has there been a moment during a game with other youth or you've heard of from people that have used your games that has sort of touched you the most in that respect?
there was one that I got from the teacher friend that I wrote um, the story guider games for,
Mm,
and they had a kid in their class that was maybe having a little bit of a hard time connecting. They didn't seem like they were paying too much attention during story guider time, but then towards the end of class, um, the kid came up to the teacher and was like, maybe, some of the kids had started to leave. This kid's parent hadn't come yet. And they were like, can we play the dragon game now? And the teacher was like, sure. The dragon's like, okay, I'm going to be in the cave and you're going to do this. And started like really getting involved with it.
yeah.
And apparently had really connected with the character and then was willing to like role play that in this other like slightly modified kind of environment or like a little bit different scenario.
Mm,
But the fact that they remembered it and then wanted to play it later, that was awesome. Like I was like, oh, my heart, so that was a really good feeling.
I can only imagine. That's a wonderful story, really. Um, and carrying on with wonderful stories and things going on. So you're not just involved with games for younger players. You do you play games yourself? Do you get the chance to sort of play more TTRPGs at an higher age range with respect to
Yeah.
to your core sort of targeted audience?
Yeah, I play tabletop RPGs with my friends. I also do a lot of play testing for AQH, so it's like Awfully for Heroes.
Mm.
Um, and so I've play tested. There's Adventures in ADHD, the Tower of the Soul campaign, and there's another one going on right now. I don't think they've announced the name, so I don't want to say anything.
That's
But
all right.
there's like a few play tests for that I've been doing. But then I also run, just games for friends. I had a little chunk of time where I was, oh, we're going to introduce a bunch of new players. So we had a new player campaign. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've been playing a lot of D&D. That's the most popular one with everyone. Like
Mm.
it's, is kind of into and everything like that. And we've been having a really good time with it. So
So are you DMing this new game? Are you?
Um, So the playtest that I do and a lot of the games that I'm in, I'm the DM. I just started one actually today where I'm a player for the first time in a long
Oh,
time, and I'm so excited. Um, it's gonna be fun. Like my character has 6 charisma, and is like 19 intelligence. So
wow.
it's a fun one. It's definitely a fun first session. So it's been it's been really good with that one. But other than that, I'm a lot of I kind of have the forever DM kind of vibe, I think.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's fair. Your character, would you mind
Mhm.
telling us a little bit more about them?
Yeah.
Because six charisma and a 19 intelligence paints only part of a picture. I'd love
Yeah.
to find out more.
So this character is an artificer. Um, and when I was rolling the stats, I got such high stats. So we did, roll four, drop the lowest one,
Obviously. Mm.
and everything was just incredibly high. And then the last roll, I got a 1, a 2, and a 1. I was like, "Oh." And I'm like, I'm really tempted to, like, make charisma my dump stat, and they're a half elf, so you get, like, the +2 in charisma,
Mm.
but I was like, "Oh, how are we gonna do this?" So, he's a, um he's very adamant about what the truth is, and so he's a little argumentative and maybe not great at explaining all the stuff that he knows. Like he maybe knows a little too much and has a hard time expressing it. So it's been fun. Like there was the session today. We were or there was situation where something turned invisible and
Mm.
someone's like, "Oh, how'd you do that? Is it like magic or something?" And my character just goes into, "Well, you see wavelengths, you know how you have waves on the ocean, and then imagine if that's like light, and then it's just kind of like you put it through a prism and then it's going to go off in a different direction, so they're just redirecting the light so we don't see them." And kind of went into this big long explanation, like lost everybody. So that's how I'm kind of playing it, and it's a lot of fun.
Does your half elf artificer have a name?
Henry.
Henry,
So
nice.
he's Henry. I don't know if the party's gonna listen, but he has like a cyborg leg and like a few other things. Like he's got an armor suit and stuff. He's been fun.
Artificers are
Yeah,
a good class, great class, to be fair.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and you mentioned sort of DMing and playtesting. Shout out to Kellen's School of
Yeah.
Awfully Queer Heroes. They're a great community over there on their Discord as well. So
Mhm.
good people there. Support their projects as well. But we're here to talk
Yeah.
about you.
No, Cal and
So
Scald are awesome, so
they
definitely
are
deserve a shout out.
fair. It's fair. So as a forever DM, having GM'd, we'll change the moniker slightly, having GM games for various ages, what advice would you give to someone such as myself? I have a young son who's he's interested by all the stacks of books and dice I've got. And what advice would you give just at more of a surface level about running games for a younger group?
Yeah. The first one is check what their expectation is. So, if their expectation is to play a tabletop RPG and they're not really concerned about the rule system, um, then you know, pick a rule system that you think will be like really good for them. But if their
Mm,
expectation is to play D&D, um, don't necessarily just like shy away from that or tell them no, because like maybe you don't want to play it or something like that. Definitely like roll with them. Like get into what they're getting into. Um, and it's okay to adjust the mechanics, especially in the beginning. One strategy that works really well is simplifying the mechanics a little bit and then
mm,
introducing things over time, like things like advantage and disadvantage. Bring those in a little bit later, or flanking, or something like that. It's kind of like here's your core rule set. We're going to like roll with these stats and that's about all you got to know for session one. Session two, we'll talk a little bit about these type of mechanics. Session three, we'll introduce like a little bit more. Um, that's a big one. So that way your mechanics aren't getting in the way of the fun. And then kind of my other one is to roll with the fun. So kids sometimes will come up with very wacky stories. My adult players do too, but more so with kids.
mm,
My son, when I played with him, we encountered a Yeti, and he's like, I want to play hide and seek with the Yeti. So we ended up playing a hide and seek game with the Yeti. It's a whole bunch of, um, you know, trying to see if we can find the Yeti. Instead of doing combat, you can do skill checks.
Mm,
The game we were playing was more like kind of skill check based, so it worked out really well. But you can do that with other systems too.
mm.
So leaning into what they're doing and being willing to listen and take their suggestions for the game and like the story that they want and being able to incorporate that is really important. That's what's going to keep them motivated and wanting to come back.
Yeah, that's great advice, and something I'm sort of mulling over. As I said, looking to run something for my own son and his friends, a sort of group that they've sort of cobbled together of aspiring players. So that's something I'll take on board and sort of approach and chat with them and their parents and all that sort of good stuff to make sure everybody's on the same playing field. Tabletop. We'll work on analogies. That'll
Yeah.
be homework for me later. So moving on from there, moving on from sort of the story guider and Glyphy Scouts and the business card game jam that's currently ongoing, and it is a fantastic idea. Link will be in the description below, so please go and support Steph everywhere. uh, uh, what is what is next for you? What's 2023 and beyond got in store for TTRPG Kids?
So I've got a couple collaboration projects that I'm working on. One of them is the Pendragon's Primer with Hatchling Games.
Mm,
So writing with that one, I'm writing in all the activities for the book and team lead for kind of helping organize the other writers. So I'm really excited about that. I have another collaboration project that I'm working on that hasn't been announced, so I can't say anything. But
yeah.
I'm geeked about that one as well. I plan on continuing with the blog, um, continuing to write more Glyphy Scout adventures,
Mm.
and I am starting to hit up conventions. So,
Ooh.
doing some workshops, trying to get some panels together, and running games at
Mm,
like conventions for kids, trying to get more stuff for younger kids. Like a lot of them have, stuff for ages 8 and up. So I'm trying to get some stuff for, maybe like the 4 to 8 range. So that way everyone's got something at the convention,
mm.
people coming with little kids can have some entertainment too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic to hear. And if I ever get the chance to attend some conventions, I'll certainly look out for it, depending on which conventions you're able to get to, and hopefully other conventions will take that on. Uh,
Mhm.
hopefully with you sort of as a guiding hand, but. If others sort of do take that on, that'd be fantastic as well. Because community is obviously a very important part of this game, and we want to nurture and grow a inclusive and supportive community. Have you seen the TTRPG community sort of moving in that direction, sort of becoming an inclusive environment?
Yes. I've seen it form and grow, and it's expanding, and there's so many ideas and so many more people coming into it. It's amazing.
Mm,
And a lot more awareness about, that maybe there are adventures that are specifically needed for kids. Um, Instead of taking something that's for adults and kind of trying to age it down, let's kind of work from the other direction and make something that is for them
mm,
specifically. And I've seen that happening a lot more and more. And I've also seen the community building each other up so much. When one person has a Kickstarter, everyone else that I've seen like in the TTRPG Kids community is kind of like, oh, let's help boost them. Let's all start retweeting. Let's start, you know, let's help with playtesting. Let's help with this and sharing resources and talking with each other. um, when I do like interviews for the site or a review for one of the games, I'm kind of like, sometimes I'll be like, oh, you might want to also check out this other person. I think
mm,
the two of you would really get along. And then I see them working together on something later and I'm like, yes. Like it's such a good feeling.
yeah.
And I'm seeing that like all those connections like kind of clicking together, and it really is becoming a community, which
Mm,
is really exciting. And there's just more and more people kind of coming into it and joining in. I've seen more people writing books. There's authors writing books about tabletop RPGs for kids, and they're like,
Mm,
"Oh, we got the idea from seeing, some of the TTRPG kids posts and things like that." And I'm like, "That's amazing."
mm.
So it's just it's been growing, and I think it's been growing in a really good direction. So
Yeah, no, and long may it continue to grow in this
mhm.
good direction. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Words are escaping me. It's terrible. Uh, so with the blog, the website, game design slash creation, play testing, DMing, player conventions, the myriad of other things. Do you get downtime? Do you get time to yourself, or is your downtime part of the hobby? How do you find time for you?
So I have fun doing a lot of this. So I haven't been doing a whole lot of video games the past couple years, which was something that I did, a lot as kind of my hobby and whatnot.
Mm,
I've kind of replaced it with this. Um, I have fun, you know, looking at data and organizing things, and um, it's a creative outlet for me. So it's something that I really enjoy and I get a boost out of it. So it's something that's fun for me. It's my hobby and one of my downtime things. There is definitely like a work element to it in some situations, and a lot of tracking. Like I have a massive tracking sheet where I'm just kind of like, okay, this is all my projects going on. I'm like, what do I want to work on today? Um, I am working right now, so I'm teaching.
mm,
And that that of course like takes up time, so that's like my day job. But this is kind of like my this is fun for me. I still watch movies, play video games on occasion and things like that, spend time with my family and have time for myself. It does take some management, like kind of here's my designated time to work on TTRPG kids, here's my
mm.
designated time for me, just to make sure that I do take that time. But been finding a balance. It took a little bit, but I found it.
I'm very jealous. Yeah, I'm still striking that balance, but I'm glad you found it. And
It's
uh,
hard sometimes. Like I'm like, oh, it's me time. I could be working on this like game that I'm trying to write. I'm like, nope. Like the alarm went off. It says it's me time. I'm taking a break for like an hour or something. I'm watching the show that I want to watch. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You mentioned there being a teacher.
Mhm.
Uh, at least D&D are sort of pushing out a educational or schools program, uh, which is great to sort of again help cultivate games at that younger age and the creative help creative minds maybe step into the community or the creative space at some point. Are there other games you would love to see release sort of school packs, or is there
Mhm.
anything that you would include in that kind of pack that you would think, if I was going to put my dream educators pack together, this is what goes in it?
Mhm. I would say Inspirials is a big one, for kind of like any age, with teaching sign language. And then I can see a lot of other ways that you could incorporate a lot of the mechanics that they've got
Mm,
for teaching other elements as well. Bard RPG is a really good one. You can create a character in like a few minutes and it works with any setting. So if you're teaching, you know, history, Greek mythology, if you want to get into a sciencey kind of setting for teaching
mm,
something in a science class, it would work great. So there's like technology elements to it and everything. That one's fantastic. And then for younger kids, just because there's a little bit of a difference there.
mm,
I made Story Guider because there wasn't a whole lot for pre-K kids. If I was going to make a like pack for really young kids, which is my kids' age, I'd probably do Story Guider and then Family Fantasy RPG and Starsworn, um, and Color by Quest. That would be
mm,
like my key pack. Like it incorporates, you've got coloring and spatial awareness. You've got like social emotional. You've got worksheets incorporated into some of them, like the Fantasy
mm,
RPG ones have a lot of worksheets at the end. Um, and you've got basic game mechanics that you can use and learn that teach math.
mm.
So it kind of like you get like the whole bundle there. Um, yeah. there's a lot of really good ones out there. I'm having a hard time like stopping myself
Yeah,
from
no,
continuing to list more and more.
no,
But
it's a good thing.
yeah.
It's a good thing. And with respect to yourself as an adult player, are there
Mhm.
any games that you've sort of seen? Maybe like most of us, you've got a shelf full or a PDF folder full, or you've seen someone else play or recommend something on
Mhm.
whichever platform, and you thought, I've really got to get a game of that going.
Yeah. I have been really liking Charge RPG. That one like Baker's Charge was on that, but then I also played the Witcher game that was out for that one with some of my players, and we had a really fun time with that. Um, and Caltrap Court is a really versatile one. Um, Pretty low entry barrier for like the mechanics. Like it's really easy to understand and write a game for it.
Hmm.
And both of those, I think, lend really well to one shots, but then you can also like extend it out into a campaign. You're not going to be like trying to get up to like level 20 or anything like that, but you can continue your characters through.
Hmm.
Um, I've also really liked Monster of the Week. I've only played one game of it.
Yes.
It was kind of recently
Hmm.
for a charity stream, but I had a lot of fun with that, and I could see that turning into like a big long set of stories. Like I really like Monster of the Week. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, your games and sort of the some we've mentioned, D&D, Monster of the Week, all use very different. Caltrop is another one. You use very different game mechanics. So have you found that you have a preference for one style of game mechanic over others, or are you just free form and you're happy to fall into whatever rolls your way in that respect?
I've been pretty happy to fall into anyone that I do. I think I've gotten really used to it, playtesting and trying out so many games with my kid
Hmm.
because uh, I mean, it's been like every other week. We've tried a different game for almost 2 years now. So we've tried a lot. And each one, the mechanics are like slightly different.
Hmm.
Even if it's another, like, kind of, if it's a D6 system, they're all like got something a little bit different
Yeah.
from each other. So I'm kind of used to, like, maybe particularly used to shifting mechanics back and forth. So the mechanics really haven't been too much of a factor, the general feel of it, and I really like ones where you can create a character with unique stats,
Hmm.
or like a unique kind of build. That was one of the things I really liked about Monster of the Week was they had the playbooks, and
Yeah.
each one was really unique from each other. But it still gave you a lot of freedom for kind of adjusting and putting your own personal flavor in there. That
Hmm.
was one thing I really liked about Bard RPG as well, was it was really easy to make a character, and there's a lot of versatility, but each like kind of playbook and set of skills was really unique.
Hmm.
So I kind of gravitate towards those systems for the ones that like I personally will pick, but mechanics wise, I kind of like the rules light ones just because they are easier to pick up, and that's what
Yeah.
I've gotten used to so far. But pretty much anyone, it's kind of fun figuring the mechanics out for me. So
Hmm.
new ones are
Fair enough.
cool.
That's the engineering mind at work.
Yeah, it's just, gotta figure out the trick kind of thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We've covered a lot. You've got the website, which includes the blogs, the podcasts you've been on, and the interviews you do, the games you release, available on itch.io. Links in the description below. You're running games, playtesting games, collaborating in the future, looking to attend cons. Is there anything that we haven't spoke about that you would like to bring up now?
I think that's a pretty good coverage. I've got so many different projects going on. It's always kind of like I take a step back sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh. Um, I think that covers it all. And if anyone wants to find it, TTRPGkids, the website is probably the best place to go. I've got links on there for everything. It's hopefully categorized pretty well for trying to find stuff. Um, but yeah, I think we've kind of covered it all. Sorry, I know there's like
That's
quite
all
a
right.
few on the list. But
No, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Just so people are reminded, they can support you on Kofi, they can buy your products on Itch, they can subscribe to your newsletter or your blog through the website. Follow you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Join your Discord server, and find you in other social places like the Awfully Queer Heroes Discord, and on the intranet and interwebs and social media hubs and all these sorts of good things. As I say, the links will be in the description below. So please scroll down, follow those links, support Steph and all the work they're doing. It is fantastic and nurturing potential in our youth, because I've long left mine behind. I'm young at heart, but I'm getting old. Steph, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I'd love to get you back either for something collaborative like a one-shot or a future interview once certain projects that you have alluded to but can't discuss have come to fruition further down the line. It'd be great to get you back on the show and chat with you again.
Yeah,
If you'd
I
be
would
willing,
love
of
to come
course.
back. Yeah, I would love to come back, either for a game or like a second chat. Thank you for having me on. It's been great being able to talk about like everything that I've been doing, and I appreciate you taking the time to kind of listen and ask, and it's been fun. So thank you.
No, the pleasure's been all mine, Steph. And I will take some of the advice you've given me about running games for my son and friends, and I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
For sure. So thank you so much. I look forward to us speaking again. Please support Steph and TTRPGkids wherever you follow the link to find it. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to learn more about the show, then go to www.snydersreturn.squarespace.com. Alternatively, you can find us over on Twitter @ReturnSnyder. We have a Linktree link in the description of this episode. And if you want to support us, come and join us over on Patreon. And we also have a Discord server. Please leave us a review, because we'd love to learn how to improve the channel and provide better content out for those who are listening. Until we speak again, thank you.